Hello and welcome to the Election Corner on One Man Think Tank. Today we're going to be finishing out our little series on third-party presidential elections. Or three-party presidential elections if you want to be grammatically correct about it. Now, we've done what if there was a third party to the left of the two existing parties, and what if there was one to the right. This time we're going to do what if one emerged that was exactly in the center. So, a new one has. It is called the Democratic-Republican Party, after the Democratic-Republican Party of old. Technically, which became the modern Democrats, but semantics. Now, the ideology of this party is, in summary, a party that really doesn't rock the boat. It goes to you and it says, look, I know you like your party, they've got great ideas and strong beliefs, but they let you down this time. So come vote for us. We will try and change nothing. Our job is to polish the china. We'll just keep everything running. They don't go out of their way to propose anything new, but they don't propose to repeal anything either. They know that plenty of people love Obamacare and plenty of people hate it, so they say, we'll maintain it. They know that a lot of people want all these protections for LGBTQ people in the workplace and in government and such, but they know a lot of people feel that is an overreach of government control and that should be left up to the state. So they just won't persecute LGBTQ people. They know immigration is a contentious issue, so they'll slacken back on going after illegal immigrants, but they're not going to do anything like DACA. No, they won't go that far. They'll just find them if they walk into a building and deport them, but they also aren't going to encourage them to walk into any buildings now. So, here we go. Let's start, as we've done, with the West Coast. Democrats get two secure states right off the bat, Washington and California. However, Oregon is likely Democratic. This is due to the fact Oregon's population is divided heavily between the Cascade Mountains. On the left, you have a very liberal side of the state, and on the right, you have a very conservative side of the state. In a ranked choice voting scenario, where conservatives are where one party has to be the smallest, you might have suburbanites in Oregon vote for the Democratic-Republican Party, and then rural folks voting for the Republicans. However, the default for the Democratic-Republicans will be the Democrats, and the Republicans the Democratic-Republicans. So, assuming the suburbanites vote in larger masses than rural areas for Republicans, you end up with the Republicans sending their votes here, which then go here. That's just how it is. So Oregon has a chance of flipping, but unlikely. Hawaii remains strong for the Democratic Party. In many ways, Hawaii is the perfect state right now for the Democratic Party. Many, many issues, but they can easily be papered over with a few tax credits. Alaska, on the other hand, would be a solid state for the Democratic-Republican Party. Like I said, the Polish the China Party. No new regulations, but no repealing old regulations. We can do it ourselves. Over to Nevada. Nevada is in a similar state. Let's keep the hands off the states now, shall we? But this is only a tilt for the Democratic Republicans. In a contentious election, it would end up going to the Democrats. The Republican Party would have no chance. In the Southwest is where we see two of our first big upsets. One, Utah, likely goes to the Democratic Republicans, and Arizona goes a good chunk of the time to the Democratic Republicans, at least 40% of the time, which in a three-party race is pretty good. Now, going over here, Colorado and New Mexico are solid Democratic. Solid blue is solid blue, and the fact of the matter is a solid blue state is going to have more electoral votes than a solid red state. I already know that's a big issue throughout this series, these two states, but it's true. They are, in and of themselves, very blue in comparison to anyone else, or in the case of purple, went purple. Up here in Idaho and Wyoming, good news for the Republicans. They still hold the Great Plains. However, in Montana, I actually feel that would be a very safe Democratic-Republican state. Much like Alaska, it is a state of, I don't care. Don't involve me. I don't want to be part of this. You know what? Let people do what they want, but stop asking me questions. I just want to go on with my day type of state. And I think that's how it will remain for the time being. Hence, it plays really well into the Democratic-Republican Party. Over in Texas, Texas is going to go leans Republican. This is, for lack of a better term, because you're going to have a lot of suburban people who would vote Democratic default to the Democratic-Republican Party. Now, if Democratic-Republican was the lowest, then Democrats would win. However, if Democrat ends up being the lowest, Republicans will win. That's just how it is, and it also depends on how many Republicans defect to the Democratic-Republican Party, etc., etc. Oklahoma, solid red. Kansas, which has been going more and more blue, I actually think, especially given how fed up they are with the Republicans, would be tilt Republican, with the solid chance of going Democratic-Republican, as most Democrats would immediately have their votes siphoned off into the median party. Next we have Nebraska. Overall, the state would be likely Republican, with the 2nd district being likely Republican, the 1st district being solidly Republican, and Omaha being solidly, or likely, Democratic-Republican. We don't like the Democrats enough to vote for them, but we also don't want to vote for the Republicans. That's the other version of this. Iowa, purple state, goes tilt Democratic-Republican. You have enough. Basically, it comes down to a matter of where do the suburban votes go. Because if it turns into the Democratic-Republicans are so small, and they're swinging this, they're just representing the swing population of the state, they disappear almost instantly. However, if they manage to be larger than one of the two other parties, they win. That's how they win Montana, Alaska, Utah, Arizona, and Nevada. The same thing happens with Iowa. You have Des Moines, which has a blue core, and then a lot of red sprinkled out the rest of the state, but the state is mostly suburban, which is the exact type of voter the Democratic-Republicans would have a good time with. I could very easily see a case where it ends up in Iowa going, the first round of the ballot goes Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, and then Democrats send their votes over here, and it ends up being a Dem-Rub state. Democrats will hold on to Minnesota. Like I said, very left-wing state. It's not going to flip to the Republican Party anytime soon at the statewide level. And in many ways, I think once its Senate flips from Republican to Democrat, we're not going to hear about this anymore. About, oh, Minnesota's likely. No, it's not. Not in this election. Not in this climate. But good news for the Republicans, they do hold the South very well. However, Louisiana is going to go likely. This is due to, like I said, that suburban Democratic mix coming together, and if it comes together in the right way, Democratic Republicans win the state. Same with Mississippi, however, Alabama remains solidly red. Georgia and Florida are both leans Republican. This is because you're going to have a lot more people who can clear their conscience by voting Democratic-Republican, and then when the Democratic-Republican Party runs out of people, moving their votes over to the Republicans. In order of victory, it goes Republican, Democrat, Democratic-Republican. They are able to hold on to a good chunk of the rest of the solid South. However, North Carolina has the slightest advantage towards the Democrats, not Democratic-Republicans. However, it would only be tilt. This is because if enough suburbanites were to pull away from both parties, the Democratic-Republicans come in second, and thus they would most likely end up in first. So for right now, tilt blue, but there's room to talk about it. Actually, sorry, not tilt blue, it'd be tilt, just check my notes, it'd be tilt Democratic-Republican. Virginia, on the other hand, would actually be likely Democratic-Republican. This is because the Republican Party in the state is basically non-existent, and the Democratic Party essentially is a very moderate party. But if you have this new centrist group come in, it's going to muscle out the Democrats and pick up a solid chunk of disaffected Republicans. Like, I think Northern Virginia and Newport News alone could carry this party in the state with the rest coming in. A similar story happens in Kentucky, but we're further out from it properly flipping, where you have Louisville and Lexington coming in and sweeping up the state, very suburban areas sweeping the state to the Democratic-Republican side. Illinois actually is likely. Like I said, suburban voters. This is who this party is based towards. A lot of America is suburbs. Wisconsin is likely leans Democratic. Why? For lack of a better term, when you have a party that's taking up a bunch of suburban voters who end up leaning Democratic at the statewide level, it's going to end up with a much bigger push towards that party if the votes get redistributed, because they've cleared their conscience by voting for the middle party. Michigan goes solid, because both the Republicans and the Democratic Republicans would be too small, and if any fraction of their votes distributed to the other party, it would still probably be too small by the end of the day to win. However, you have Pennsylvania, which is leans Democratic for right now. This state is a very contentious state. There are very few swing voters in Pennsylvania. There are, however, a lot of Republicans and a lot of Democrats. And suburbanites, like I said, Democratic-Republican to Democrat right now is the more likely of the two swings. West Virginia would be leans Republican. They would also be very open to this sort of, stay off my lawn Republican Party, or Democratic-Republican Party. Republicans can feel safe in the fact they'll hold on to Indiana in most cases, but honestly, good chance of losing Ohio there. Same logic as Virginia. Right now, when you have to pick between two parties, pretty obvious. When you have to have a bit more of a split, not so obvious. Two more states that are going to also end up in this similar category is Maryland with a leans with a tilt Democratic-Republican, and Delaware with a likely Democratic-Republican. Maryland is obvious due to its historical bipartisan nature and, we'll say, moderate Democratic and Republican bases, while Delaware, it's the banking state. They want everything to remain the same, and that mentality can be encouraged throughout the whole state. Enough to win, at the very least. Democrats can still feel good, though. They're going to hold on to New Jersey quite strong. However, New York would end up in the likely category. A lot of Upper New York State would love this middle party. This, like I said, hands-off party. Democrats are able to safely win Vermont. However, the rest of New England would end up in that similar likely category. You got a lot of affluent suburbs who would probably end up going for the Democratic-Republican Party, and if enough Republicans went for them, they could win. Unlikely, but there's a chance. New Hampshire would be likely Democratic-Republican. A lot of people who don't want to vote for the Republicans, and a lot of people who don't want to vote for the Democrats. It's a tale as old as time, honestly. And lastly, we have Maine. Maine, the 2nd district, would be solidly Republican. The 1st district would be solidly Democratic, likely for both in this scenario because you have this moderate party. But because of this, the state would be tilt Democratic-Republican. That's the influence of a moderate party. And you can see it from this map because at the end of it, Republicans have 197 votes, Democrats have 237 votes, and Democratic-Republicans have 101 votes. Meaning, no one wins! Not at all, no one wins. And you are left with this honest mess of a board, where you have a lot of states which are leans Republican, who could very easily be flipped by the Democrats, or due to a level of Democratic-Republican coalitioning. Oh, sorry, missed state. Or not state, but D.C. would be solidly Democratic. And on further review, Maryland would be leans Democratic, I think, at the end of the day. I think I did my math wrong there. But either way, Democrats are now only at 250 as opposed to, 270, which is what you need to win. So the message still remains the same. You have all of these states across the board that are now very competitive both for the Democrats and for the Republicans, in their safe zones. On the Democrats, it's the Northeast, which has now become competitive, and in the Republicans, it's in the South. Meaning, whichever party can manage to form a coalition with the Democratic Republicans, whether it's a Democratic all-caps Republican or an all-caps Democrat-Republican party. And so I imagine in this scenario, you'd probably end up with both parties trying to compromise by having their VP candidate be from the Democratic-Republican Party in an attempt to win these states and not end up with a hanging election. So, with all that being said, if you liked the video, please leave a like down below. Also, drop a comment. I'm always curious to hear about your opinion. Otherwise, if you want to see more from the channel, click the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be alerted when new content comes out. And, as always, have a wonderful day.